Welcome to Bloodbath & Beyond. Today I'll be reviewing Downrange. Hell is on the way. Written and directed by Ryûhei Kitamura, who also directed Midnight Meat Train and the sleeper hit No One Lives. This movie stars Kelly Connaire, Stephanie Pearson, Rod Hernandez, Anthony Curlew, Alexa Yeames, Jason Tobias, and Ion Boyd. Downrange is about a group of people that are carpooling. Unfortunately, the car breaks down. While changing the tire, they start getting shot at by a sniper. So the rest of the movie, these people that are basically in a desert and need to figure out how they can somehow use this broken down car as a shield to protect themselves from the sniper. First and foremost, I'm a huge fan of one location movies because you really get to see what the director can do with just having characters in one situation. And this one was fairly unique because I don't think I've seen another one that involved a sniper other than maybe Phone Booth. However, this movie was more aimed at the horror audience as opposed to the thriller crowd. It seemed to have a pretty decent budget as well because it does have like great cinematography for the most part. Everything looked really clean and everything was color graded well. There were cool camera moves. They were able to utilize their cinematography to keep the audience engaged because like I said, this is a one location movie. So if you have like a shaky camera, you're probably gonna stop watching the movie very early on. And I was actually surprised by the production value. The soundtrack is also really cool. There are times where it kind of has hints of like synthwave and very retro sounding tones, especially when you start seeing who the killer is and when the action starts to ramp up a little bit. It's really cool. One of the best aspects about this movie are the practical effects. Yes, I've heard a lot of people talking about it on Twitter, and we've seen posts online with super elaborate headlines saying, "These are the best effects that you'll ever see in 2018. I would argue that. However, the practical effects are amazing. There aren't like a crazy amount. Well, I guess there is, but they're gunshot wounds, right? So the first two are absolutely awesome. Unfortunately, two of the more likable characters, and even seeing the cinematography where the camera goes through the wounds of like a bullet hole or something through somebody's head, and just seeing like the practical heads get demolished, and just the amount of blood that you see from each of the characters that do get shot, it's really cool, really well done, and it's very professional. And before we move on to the dislikes, also the stunts in this movie are incredible. We have a Burning Man, we have cars flipping, and they look really, really great. They're shot extremely well, and they just look awesome. Well, I like the cinematography, and I appreciated some of the bold camera moves that they did. They're kind of like off-putting at times as well because they're kind of like spinning in circles. The first example of this comes when one of the characters is changing a tire, and you're like, well, that was kind of weird. That's like the first camera move that's awkward. And then later on, you have a couple drone shots that just seem really out of place because if you're gonna try and do something that's a little bit more outside of the box, I think it's really important to incorporate that throughout the rest of the film so that it's more plays towards and builds up the art style of the movie itself. Unfortunately, the way that it was done seems a little bit disjointed because it seems like they had a couple shots in mind that they wanted to do, and they just kind of threw them in there randomly, and it just didn't feel as connected with the rest of the film. A little pet peeve of mine, I hate when people use social media to tell a story. Yes, it helped get across some of the story between some of the main characters, but the actual UI of the social media platform that was supposed to kind of replicate Facebook, it was absolute trash. Having bad graphics like this doesn't kind of live up to the rest of the production value of the movie, and it seems to cheapen it a bit. What also cheapens the movie, unfortunately, is a lot of the acting. So we do have like pretty run-of-the-mill characters, and that's fine, but I didn't like some of the characters. I mean, like we have the army brat who has a military background, and she was kind of just loud and obnoxious, and she was very demanding. If you're in a desert, you're gonna want water. If you're bleeding, everybody knows to tie up a wound. She was very demanding and aggressive, and I just really didn't like her at all. But the acting surrounding all of these people was just not great. I guess it was average for like an indie movie like this, but like I said, because of the production value being so high, the acting kind of brings it down a notch, and that's super unfortunate. In a one location movie like this, not only does the cinematography have to be on point, but the characters need to be fleshed out. You need to care for them in their situation, or else they're just kind of sitting behind a car when you're waiting for them to get shot. Which I wasn't. I was rooting for them, despite the lack of character development and mediocre acting. And I still wanted to see them get out of the situations, but there are a couple scenes with the sniper himself that seemed really kind of cheesy, that didn't really suit the rest of the film. He just seems kind of silly and weird. It almost added too much campiness for a movie that otherwise had a more serious tone. Overall, this was a pretty decent movie. It had a high production value, we had cool stunts, great practical effects, and it's just something a little bit different. But unfortunately, most of the acting seemed phoned in, and because you don't know too much about them, you're not gonna care that much. So I'm gonna give this 3 awkward birthday songs out of 5. As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, there are links in the description where you can find it. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay updated with everything Bloodbath and beyond.